Welcome to Horsefly Chronicles Radio with Julia and Philip Siracusa. Sponsored by Carnation. Airing live on United Public Radio Network on 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. This show's opening has been produced, edited, narrated by Gwen Luckett at gluckett.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horsefly Chronicles Radio with myself, Julia Siracusa, and Philip Siracusa. We are broadcasting live from the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by Carnation, so we want to thank them for their sponsorship. We love them. Thank you so much. You'll have to do a few things in order to participate and chat. Go to our YouTube page, UFO Paranormal Radio. Go to all of our Facebook stations, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, UFO Undercover with Joe Montaldo, News on the Flip Side, Horsefly Chronicles Radio, SoundCloud, Palm Beach, all those platforms. So tonight, guys, we have some amazing guests. So let's welcome them all to the show. Please welcome to the show the co-authors of the Near-Death Institute, NDI, supporting and empowering NDEs. Phil is also a co-author on this book. This book is to be released on March 21st. Their mission is to guide everyone on a spiritual journey to what it is like to experience a near-death experience. And they are putting all of their experiences into a book. So you can pre-order this book with all of these amazing authors on neardeathinstitute.com. So please welcome them all to the show. Hey.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Okay, so we have a big crowd here tonight. And one thing that fascinates me, my own experience, and then other people around the world come forward with near-death experiences, and we all have that question: what happens when it's over? And tonight we're going to bring you some of the brief details by these amazing people of what they experienced. You've already heard my story a million times to the listener, and how they feel, and what's going to be in the book coming out on March 21st. So we want to start out with Ameera, who started the whole project. Ameera, tell us a bit about your background and how you came up with this idea.
So I got into near-death experiences and the stories and writing on the stories 10 years ago. So my grandfather had passed away, and I went into a very deep depression. And what actually helped me to, heal from it was a near-death experience book. And so since then, I've been ghostwriting near-death experiences and helping people who've had NDEs self-publish their own books. And a few months ago, I was very much interested in doing a co-author book with many authors instead of, just one. And so I reached out to all of you guys, and here we are.
Wow.
And what's some of the details that you can give the audience that they're going to get into this book, like some of the takeaways?
Yeah. So there's been so many different experiences from all the authors. As you know, some of them, had complications during surgery. Some of them were very sick. Some had car accidents. Some, one of them was struck by lightning. So, it's just the different ways in which they've died, which was really interesting for me to learn about. And then also the different types of experience they've had. Many of them have had, the life review. Some haven't had the life review. Some have seen loved ones. Some haven't. Some have seen, golden clouds. Some have seen ascended masters, met their guides. So there's so many different experiences. And what I love most about it is the diversity and how it represents every person's experience can be different, and that we shouldn't really look at it being one specific way, but being open to however it may manifest for you, and knowing that no matter what manifests, there's always love on the other side. There's always, a lot of unconditional love and acceptance, which is what we all want. So that's what I'm mostly excited about.
I love it. I love it. Megan, welcome. Tell us about yourself and a briefing of what happened to you.
Okay. My name is Megan Brown, and I am, I'm just an earthling here, which sounds crazy. But now that I've been raised Roman Catholic and was an atheist for 18 years, and then I had my third near-death experience where I spent 5 days in heaven, now it makes a lot of sense to me why I say that. So I spent 5 days in heaven. I met God. I met Ascended Masters. I had my life review. I went to a concert that was fantastic. Freddie Mercury, Terry Kath, Marvin Gaye, to name a few, for the Queen Band, and a lot of other things that happened there.
Wow.
This was in heaven?
Yes.
So
Wouldn't
wait,
that be heaven
Wow.
for you? I mean, I'm the Queen fan. I get it.
wait, I have to touch something here. You were an atheist for, you said 18 years?
18 years, yeah.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
And then that happened to you, and it kind of just changed everything.
It did. Yes, it absolutely did. I was an atheist because when I was young, I got raped. And I remember I thought, having grown up Roman Catholic, I thought, if there's a God, this wouldn't have happened. There's no way. My life couldn't get any worse. And it did at that time. And so I thought, okay, yeah, save it. Everybody save it. I quit going to church. When I was with my grandmother, I'd make her happy, show up, but it was just to make my grandmother happy. And then I just kind of went on my own way thinking, and I remember I was just talking to a friend of mine about this. I said, I used to think after that experience that if there was a God, he would have to prove it to me. There would have to be proof. And oh, did I ever get proof? I got a lot of proof. So that was great. I got my proof.
Wow. I just got
And a question I have for you, are you afraid of death now?
No, I'm not. There's nothing to fear, and we don't die. All we do is our soul leaves to go to, it's like we just transition to the other planet. And so we're just on that planet instead. And we're still in our human bodies that we leave from on this planet. And you see everybody the same, and everybody becomes younger. And with regard to children, I mean, I saw children in heaven, but I don't know what the cutoff is. If it's 18 and under, they don't change the age, and they get older there, or I don't remember that part, but I do remember that everybody looked as though they were 30 again, which was really neat.
To be young forever. Awesome. I love it. And Elle, tell us about yourself.
Well, I was living kind of a irregular life before everything happened. I feel like part of mine was manifestation because I was a single mom. I was so tired and just frustrated and just really wanted an opportunity to take a break. And I would pray about it. And I said, God, I just want to take a break and just have not have any responsibilities for a while. I decided to leave where I was to go see my family for a little bit with my daughter. And I wasn't feeling that great. And long story short, I had an infection of some kind. And when I got to see my family, it got worse. So I was admitted into the hospital. I was treated. I was starting to get better. And then a mistake happened and I started having anaphylaxis. I became completely septic. They were having trouble stabilizing my breathing. So they eventually intubated me, and then I was put into an induced coma because my organs were failing and shutting down. So then I was put on life support, and because I was essentially dying, and that's when I don't know the correlation of time, and I've spoken to my family afterwards, but it's great to hear other NDE stories. And my story, I left my body several times when I was in my coma. And then I ultimately left and I traveled to space. I saw a different planet. I saw a nebula. I was a orb shape. So the fact that you guys do, you also do like, spooky stories or things like that, and you see orbs. I always wondered how, a person would be inside of an orb. And what I experienced was my entire consciousness and body was inside of that orb. I had 3 guides on the other side, and one of them looked like my daughter. And I think that guide was to keep me anchored and keep me motivated to stay here. But they gave me a lot of instruction and answered questions that I had before I had my NDE, things about the world, things about, what's going on and why things are so corrupt and why things are the way that they are. They also taught me about consciousness and the fact that all living things are consciousness. And I kept on hearing merge with the tree and merge with this and merge with that. So I actually went into different life forms, like a lily, a fish, and then also merged with a tree. And I was able to experience what it was like to be them, not to pretend to be them, but what they actually were and how their consciousness actually works. And so, the other things that I saw were through the Akashic records, where I was told, certain things were going to happen, and, what to do with myself and what people need to do in order to kind of be prepared for some of those things. And ultimately, what I believe is the time that I was not going to come back, or I guess, was the time where I was going to transition forever, based on my conversations with my family afterward and what was going on in the waking world. I don't like to call it reality because you know how that is. This is honestly not that real here. But I was in a room and everything went very still and quiet. And it was a little bit dark. And then my guide said, reach out your left hand. And I did. And a silver sphere appeared. And then once that happened, Jesus in a light body form appeared and said, I love you. Everything's going to be okay. And then a light panned around the room that made a tunnel shape. And when that tunnel shape appeared, I felt just a sense of like ambivalence and a sense of just being really peaceful and just whatever happens, happens, even though prior to that, I was kind of, I wanted to see my daughter. And so after that happened, the light retracted back. And then that was the last thing that I remembered. Now, in the waking world, my family said that I was crashing. And all of a sudden, I started breathing again. And they were all shocked because my doctors gave me a less than 1% survival rate. So they had brought up, an oscillator from the basement and hooked me up to that. And then from there, I began to stabilize more and more.
That's truly amazing. And thank God you're here. Wow. It leaves you speechless. And then I would ask you the same question. Are you afraid of death?
No, I'm not afraid of death, but I am FOMO. the fear of missing out, because my daughter, my daughter is 20, and I just want to see everything that she's going to do and that she is doing. So I have more the fear of missing out, but not the fear of death.
Fascinating. Fascinating. And we have, let's see here, Sharon.
Yes. Hello. Yes.
Tell
Thank
us
you.
about your near-death experience.
Of course. This is the second near-death experience I had in 2001. And a little bit about my background. I was also raised Roman Catholic. I was not a good Catholic. My parents were not good Catholics. And so I didn't, I didn't abide by the Catholic teachings. It didn't resonate with me about the judgment and things like that. I didn't enjoy church or anything. So my experience was contrary to what I would have expected in a near-death experience. It was 2001. Some friends and I went inner tubing down the Guadalupe River in New Braunfels, Texas. And when we went to get off the river to go back to our cars after a really great day, the bus was full, the shuttle bus was full. And so I got on the bus, our group got on the bus, and I was up against the back door of the bus. It was a little small bus, one of those little school buses, and it was pulling a trailer that had our inner tubes and our ice chests in it. And as the bus driver was driving, which was just a couple miles from where they picked us up on the river, the back door flew open and I fell out of the bus and fell underneath the trailer that they were pulling. I bounced off the trailer hitch, I bounced onto the pavement, and then bounced underneath the tires. And at that point, one of the tires ran over my head and my neck. And that's when I popped out of my body. And I was, as I knew that it was going to happen because I screamed in my head, "Stop, you're killing me," as loud as I could, because I knew that in the next second that that was going to happen. And so when I popped out of my body and through the head, I was looking down on the scene and I saw my body in the road, and I didn't feel upset at all. I actually felt detached from my body and my first thought was, okay, well, I died. I've done this before. Here I am again. That life is finished. This is how I ended my life, how I died in this lifetime. And then I felt bad for my friends because we had such an amazing day. And I remember thinking, gosh, this is really going to ruin their day. It was a girlfriend's birthday. I'm like, oh, she's not going to be able to celebrate her birthday. Oh, that's sad, that kind of thing. But it didn't make me want to go back. And I thought about my family, and I realized they were going to be okay. I was shown that they would be okay. I had that awareness. And then I felt movement behind me, and I turned around, and it was my stepfather who had died a couple of years earlier, who I was really close to. He basically raised my sister and I. And he told me, and when I turned around, I saw him, and it was really good to see him. And he told me it wasn't my time. And I said, but I want to stay with you. And we had that conversation. And then a tunnel started to open up to my right. And I looked at it and I saw my ancestors, my relatives that I knew on here in this world, and also ancestors that I didn't know or wouldn't have remembered in this world, but that I knew being my ancestors. I recognized them. And I was started to be drawn to the tunnel. And there was another tunnel portal that opened beyond this tunnel, and it was golden white. It was gorgeous and huge. It was like the sun, and my attention was brought to that tunnel. And as I was looking at that tunnel, I saw a figure come out of the tunnel, moving toward me out of the tunnel, a light figure. And I recognized him. As he came closer to me, I recognized him as Jesus, who I call Yeshua. And yeah, and I knew him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know you, and I've missed you terribly. And I flew to him, and he was very physical. He he told me also that it's not your time. And I said, but I want to stay with you. I want to be with you. I was so happy. Joy doesn't describe it to see him. And I remember his laughter. He chuckled and said, I know, type of thing. It was telepathic. And while we were communicating, he enveloped me in light, and I was filled with his light. And I believe that's what healed my body afterwards, or why my body wasn't as damaged as it could have been. And then he said to me, I mean, that was just such can't describe the light in our terms. But after that, after I came back, I also want to describe his eyes the way I remember them saw them and have seen since then, is they were blue. To me, they were blue. People have asked me what his eyes looked like, and to me, they were blue, and they held the universe, the universe within them. And he was also reflecting my soul back to him. It was difficult to describe, but we were reflecting the love and the light that we had within. He was reflecting it to me, and I was reflecting my soul back to him. So we were merging in that space. And then he said that he wanted to take me on a journey. He asked me if I would go on a journey with him. And I, of course, said yes. And he put his hand out, and I took his hand. And as soon as I took his hand, we went flying through the cosmos. And we come across another portal, and it's a blue portal. I see a blue light, and it's a blue portal. And we move through that portal as he's holding my hand. And I recognize, and then I see a planet, and I recognize a planet as we come closer to it. It's a ocean planet, a water planet. And I recognize it. And interesting what you said, Elle, because as I was gazing on the planet, we were there, and I was connecting to the planet again, I was able to become and merge with the consciousness of the planet. I was actually aware of that the planet was my body, and I had so much love and caring for every being on my body on that planet, and I could bring my awareness back and forth to the smallest being, cell or amoeba on that planet, up to being the consciousness of the planet. It felt like a mother energy as I was merging. And after that experience, we dove down into the planet, the ocean, and I was reunited with a family there that I recognized as a family. And that I don't know how long that lasted. It felt like I had never left. Yeah. And I realized that I have children there, a family, a mate. I was reunited with my parents, with my ancestors, with my soul group on that planet. And
Wow.
the communication, the communication afterwards, Yeshua, he let me know that once my mission on Earth was finished, that, I could remember or move my focus to that planet and have that experience there. But Earth was, I still had a mission I hadn't finished on Earth yet. And then once I agreed, I said, okay, I agree. I mean, there's, of course, with all of our experiences, so much more, but I agree. But you have to promise that I will know that you were walking beside me every minute of the day, and I know you tangibly in my life. And then I'm back in my body as soon as I agreed. And he agreed. We had that agreement. I made a deal with him.
Yes.
That's fascinating, right, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, it's so incredible that everyone has like a different story, but it kind of like is the same story but a different story. It's fascinating. But my question is, when you guys came back into your bodies and you told your families these stories, did they believe you?
Yeah, I would say that they did believe. They didn't understand it all, because kind of like Sharon and Megan's family, mine, I had a mixture of majority religious and one atheist, and then some others that were in between. They just couldn't process it. And they know that you did experience something, but they just don't know how to understand all the things. And then on our side too, some things we don't know how to communicate, because in the spiritual realm, things are not about words. Like Sharon had mentioned, a lot of things were telepathic. Everything was telepathic. So a lot of things are about feeling and energy, and it's hard to communicate that in human words.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, perfect.
I think that's amazing. One thing that Sharon had said that I got the chills is she said that there was another family, a past family, that she was brought to. And it kind of reminds me of certain things when she said that. And I hear these stories, and again, I have my own, I'm going to experience it too. And then, you know, the skeptic would say, right? The skeptic would say, well, why you're brought back and why not everybody else? Why not an innocent child who died of cancer? Why couldn't they come back? Or why? And, you know, I want to hear what you have to say to the listener out there. Why we have this as the messenger, but other people don't.
Can I jump in here?
Go ahead, Meg.
Yeah.
So I didn't share a lot of what happened in my near-death experience because I didn't know how much time was allotted here. So I can concur with what Elle and Sharon have said, like the telepathic thing and being at one with something, because we're all one with the creator and the universe. But to answer your question about why are we allowed to come back, and whereas a child who you used as the example who has cancer and is going to leave this planet with that cancer and it's incurable, it is my belief, based on my last near-death experience, that because we signed up for it. And I remember looking at God in heaven. We were talking at one point, he mentioned reincarnation. And I, having grown up Catholic, I didn't, I wasn't taught to believe that. But then I got a little hint of it when I was very young, like 11, 12 years old. And then I thought, oh, well, this is bogus, But I didn't know, right? So I looked at God at his table and I said, reincarnation's real? And he said, oh, absolutely. He says, you've had quite a few lives. And I thought, oh my gosh. And I said, why is this life so hard? And he said, because you chose 3 lives in one. And I said, what the bleep was I thinking? And he looked at me and he said, you didn't want to reincarnate. So it's interesting because I took on a very rough life in this life so that I don't have to reincarnate. And I chose 3 near-death experiences, more, but 3 that I have stories about. And it's like, I had to come back. I can't get off this planet right now. I can't. And it's something that I would love to experience, but it's like I've been pushed out all 3 times. And I've had 3 very different near-death experiences. And God actually said to me, I said, why did I choose this life? And he said, because it's the agreement that you signed with me before you were born. So there is actually an agreement that each one of us signs. And what our families don't understand necessarily, I mean, depending on the family, I shouldn't speak for every family, and I'm not, but is that, look, we're not taught some of this stuff, depending on what background we have or we come from. So we're learning along the way as we kind of bump along in life, into the next experience of whatever that experience is. So it has to do with agreements that we've signed. And the agreement is also for, in that case of the child, it's also for the parents. So they knew that they would be having this child who would be leaving early in their life before the parents would. But they don't remember that. They don't recall it. That's my 2 cents.
Perfectly said. Perfect, and I agree with you 1,000%. She just hit on the head. I'm frozen because she hit it right on the head. Everything she says I would have said. Soul contract makes total sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if I hadn't heard it from God himself, I wouldn't have believed it, So, but I did.
Yeah, some people don't. They think, why are things this way? Why would I want this to happen? And they don't realize that they don't remember what their soul actually agreed to before coming here. And they don't realize that we have active decisions in what our soul does and where it goes and how we express ourselves here. And then we forget when we're born. And, it's kind of a re-remembering.
It's
Yeah, I
interesting.
remember.
Oh,
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say I remember having that conversation with my guides and
Mhm.
them telling me I was going to forget because I also chose a lot on my plate this lifetime so I could step off the karmic wheel. And him telling me, this is going to be really tough. And I said, that's okay. I can do it. I can do it. Yeah, because we don't have a different perspective when we are choosing our life experience than when we're here. And I've had, that sense too, or that conversation. What was I thinking?
Mhm. Right.
I believe that 100%. We write our lives before they're going to happen. I 100% believe that. Mhm.
I want to ask this question that, again, I play both roles, even though I'm an experienced. The skeptic would say, well, all of you were under medication, and the medication releases DMT, which makes you hallucinate into the state. Now, I already combated that with myself and my own NDE, but Ameera, whoever wants to take that, and let's go around. How would you say to the listener that it's not a chemical reaction that you're hallucinating from a near-death experience, that was actually another place of existence?
I wish I could tell you, but I don't know that for a fact, because I've never had a near-death experience, so I cannot speak from my experience. But from everyone that whether it's interviewed or people that I've ghostwritten for, or even you guys, just hearing your stories and feeling the truth in that, I really don't believe that it's some kind of chemical, soup in your brain that's making you hallucinate things. Um, well, from my personal experience, I can say that, growing up, we had our own belief systems. I grew up in a Islamic household. So having these conversations was very much taboo. You don't speak on death. You should fear death. You should fear God. You should not even mention the words reincarnation. There's no such a thing. It was very much, you are born into this life as a test, basically. And depending on how good you are, that will determine your fate for all of eternity. Do you go to heaven or do you go to hell? And that explanation was just not enough. It wasn't enough for me. And hearing all the stories and hearing all the experiences and just feeling into the emotion of what people are saying when they're explaining their experiences, for me, I don't feel like that can be some kind of hallucination. And how, for me, I don't understand how would it be possible for multiple people who have no connection with each other or even know each other's stories to have similar experiences, to explain certain things in different ways. Some people go to a garden, and I know you've been to this garden too, where the grass is alive, the air is alive, the colors are alive and conscious. How does multiple people have the same experience of that if this is just an hallucination? So those are some of the questions that I think of when someone will say to me, well, this may be an hallucination, it may be just consequences of your brain doing something weird under medication. And I can understand that and I respect that opinion, but I think we'll all find out soon enough anyway. So we'll see when we get there.
Yes,
I like it.
Right.
there's no experts.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Oh, I'm sorry,
No,
Julia.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
I was gonna say there's no experts in any of this, and she's right. When we do, officially cross over, we'll have all the answers. But there's too many stories that match up for, it's just too much, I would say, evidence, of people coming forward and telling their stories like all of you. It's amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say, even though everybody's NDE story is different with the ultimate same theme, I'm going to answer that question with science. Some of you guys know I'm studying to be a doctor. Okay. So,
Awesome.
and I'm specifically studying genetics. And there's only so much that chemicals can do. Chemicals can't create healing in the body. Chemicals can't create rapid healing in the body. I know I've heard from Megan and Sharon, and I think a couple of the other authors about, especially one who was struck by lightning, which defies just all things about physics and medicine. With my situation, my tracheotomy healed in 24 hours. My feeding tube healed in 2.5 to 3 days. I saw the shock on the doctors' faces. And considering that my body shut down, if you think about it, you're going into a necrotic state. Your cells are dying off every single day, except they're dying off really fast. And then all of a sudden, Phil, you're here, Megan, you're here, Sharon, you're here, we could talk. My CO2 was over 200, and on the max on a lab is 35 before you have brain damage. I don't have any brain damage today, maybe tomorrow morning, but not today. And so those types of things are definable, and you can see scientifically as well. In recent physics studies, physicists are now starting to connect that our consciousness, physicists are actually saying this, our consciousness is connected to the universe. And one of the reasons why this is being studied now is an attempt to see how far our reach as humans can go into the cosmos, and maybe even affect space travel into further distances in the future. But even physicists are saying this now. So there's only so much chemicals and DMT can do, and they can't do a lot of those things.
I'd like to add something here. There was something, Julia, you said that just made me think of this, but then Elle, you just said, I'd like to bring the scientific point in here. And God actually, one of the things that he ordered me to do when I came back was to write a book. And in the book, he said, you're going to marry science with religion. And I thought, okay, I've never written a book before, and I'm not a scientist, and I'm not religious. So how's that going to work? And he said, you'll figure it out. And at another point, when I was standing talking to God, I was sitting talking with Mozart and Bach about how life is going to be changing for the world, the collective as a whole. And then God appeared, like he can do. And he asked me to step forward. And he told me that he asked me the question, what have you been learning? And I explained to him, and he said, okay, you've been listening. And I said, God, I can't go back. I said, I'm in kidney failure. I have 7 different things going on in my body right now. I had less than a 10% chance of living, and my organs shut down. And he looks at me and he goes, it's called a miracle, Megan. And I will never forget him saying that to me. And I thought, of all the other times in my life that I wanted a miracle, where were you? Now I want to stay here. But, bringing that science with religion, bridging that together, and getting back to what, the brain and how the brain is, and is it like a drug-induced situation? I did acid once when I was 20 years old, after my friends went to the Grateful Dead concert. I did mushrooms 3 times at 20 years old. And I'll tell you something, I smoked plenty of pot back then too, but I had those experiences, and not one of them is like a near-death experience. And I'll tell you why. If I can be, I don't know, I couldn't remember anything, after those experiences, but to remember a lot of stuff, the majority of the stuff, to remember it and come back and tell the story over and over and over again. Okay. hello. I mean, at some point, your memory, it's been 16 years for me since that happened. So at some point, the memory kind of, fades away a little bit, but there's still these really poignant moments that I can just recall, like total recall, and seeing Jesus was one of them, and the telepathic talking to Jesus, that was another. It's not made up. And why is it so believable for people to believe religion, okay? And that this is the way, this is the way, this is the way. And here we are going, well, religion, we're all unified. In the end, we're all love. That's it. We're all love. And so why can we not believe that? Why is it that it's just these doctrines? I mean, I have my own philosophies on it and I have my own opinions, which I won't share because I'm not being asked, but I'm just bringing it to the forefront here to say, if we just, like look at it from a different set of eyes and say, oh, well, yeah, why couldn't they be coming back with messages for everybody from heaven? Like I sat with Prophet Muhammad and Jesus and God all at the same table. There were 77 of us. And some people have had hard times with that, hearing that. And it's like, but why? Because you believe what man wrote? Okay, well, newsflash, it's not the real deal.
You have to have an open mind in all of this because you have to.
Yeah, right. It's well, there's a lot of programming, right? If I could speak to your question, Philip, too, is that I am also an out-of-body traveler, an avid out-of-body traveler. So I kept chasing I kept wanting to go back home when I came back. I kept wanting to go back home. And so I studied how to leave my body, not through trauma, but through the conscious state and doing it on my own and in the willing state. And I can say, and have journaled over 2,000 experiences since then, I can say that it's more real there, I guess we could say, than it is here. Everything is more intense. The senses are heightened. It's just, that is home. That is what's more real than this reality here.
I agree.
That is what you always call it, home.
It is home because there's such an unconditional love, and it's like something I've never felt on this planet ever.
Wow, amazing.
It's amazing, right? Because we hear these experiences, and then again, the skeptic would say, well, it's a release of DMT, and it's a hallucination, and a fabrication of an imagination. But I know, like all of you know, that that's not true. It's more real than here, and that is home, and that these soul contracts are real. And then I don't disrespect anyone's religion or beliefs, but as well, someone who does not believe in near-death experience would say, well, in religion, especially Catholic religion, or that's how I grew up, it says verbatim, you cannot communicate with not only the dead, but you cannot enter God's kingdom. Now, as an NDEer, Megan, your thoughts?
Did you hear us?
I don't think she's coming through. She might have been freezing a little bit. So let's transfer to Elle. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not Catholic, but I had this discussion with somebody about those words, entering the kingdom of God. And what I experienced and information I got from my guides is that the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom in general, is the universe that lives within you and how we're connected to the universe and to God. That is the actual kingdom. I think doctrines interpret it as like this place where there's a throne, people are sitting there that are ordained. They have a tendency to translate things into what they would be here when they're actually completely different. So the kingdom is actually the universe that lives within you. We're kind of a universe within a universe ourselves, and we're consciously connected to God, the source, and that's the actual kingdom.
Wow, perfectly said.
Absolutely.
Sharon, and what's your take on that?
Sharon? Oh, I don't think they can hear us.
Okay, sorry, I was muted. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I sat in teaching in my classroom, in my room, every day, every evening after my near-death experience with Yeshua, teaching me and helping me remember. And I went through my life review then, and he taught me that everything is within us, the kingdom is within us, and that we are. Sorry, okay, I'm still here. Yeah, and
You're
we,
all went out for a second.
everything is within us. When we go out of body at night, we're actually going within. We're not, that's a misnomer. We're not really going out of our body. We're going within. It's all within us. And I do
Within.
believe that his teachings were and what he shared with me, our communication is that they were misunderstood, perhaps on purpose. They're not on purpose. Who knows? But that's what he taught us, and that we are love, and that the kingdom is within. We have everything we need within us.
Yeah, and I'm going to reference. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, good. I said I agree.
Yeah, I was going to reference the Bible really quickly. That another thing that the Bible says is to become like little children in order to enter the kingdom. So what do children do? They come in through a womb. Then when they enter and they start understanding their surroundings, they start asking a lot of questions. When you're not asking those questions with a childlike spirit, when you're not like, seeking out answers, and when you're not experiencing a sense of wonderment, then you're stepping further away from where that kingdom is that's within you. So that's why it's important to constantly have that, because that helps to connect you to the kingdom.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Okay, so Megan's in and out. That's okay. Ameera, the skeptic, or someone would say, well, is there only a heaven or a place of happiness? Is there a dark side, in your opinion? And then we're going to go around again. I know that you didn't have the NDE, but in an opinion, do you think there's a hell?
Yeah, so I think, I grew up believing that there was a hell because that's what I was told, and that was what I was taught in my, religious schools and, family and stories that I've been told. So I grew up with that belief that there is a hell. And I've heard some near-death experience stories where they did have hellish experiences. However, my opinion is that there is only love and unconditional love, and then there is also a, I don't know how to say this, but kind of like an absence of that. So there's love and unconditional love and all that is, and then there's an absence of that. So it's not that there's a specific hell, in my opinion, where people go and, burn for all eternity. But I do believe that they create their own experiences, including a near-death experience that's hellish, with their own belief systems and their own consciousness and their own thoughts. So yes, I think you can have a hellish experience, but I don't think that hell in itself exists there for people to just, walk in and just, have that experience. I think you need to create it with your belief system, and that's how you'll experience it. Again, in my opinion.
Who wants to take on that question?
Probably all of us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I feel like I'm talking too much. I'll let somebody else. Yeah. So one of the things that my guide showed me is that because we're energy and energy never dies, our energy gets attracted to wherever our energy resonates. So if we're high vibrational at that time, we will go to a high vibrational place that some people call heaven. If we're low vibrational, that energy will be attracted to and we'll go to and create a place that are all of our fears all consumed. and, and all of our pain all consumed. So that's essentially what quote unquote heaven and hell is, according to what I learned.
I like it.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to
I'll
take
speak
that
to that
on?
real quick. I'll speak to that real quick if I can. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay.
Once, yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I believe that here in the Western world, we're not taught how to die. And we really need to know how to die, how to be able to leave our existence, our physical existence here. And I totally agree. It has to do with our state of mind and fear. If we have fear, then we can go to a hellish realm or attract that type of experience. If we're full of fear and we're full of judgment, if we feel we're going to be judged. I do spirit rescue as well, and there's so many beings that I come across that are afraid of being judged, and so it keeps them on the earth plane, and they're we get attached to certain things that become ghosts and things like that. So if we know how to die, and we know to lift our frequency, and we know that we are eternal, and this is just another experience, and that it's just an easy transition from one who was it that said it, from one world into another, then it's a lot easier. And it's really important for us to have that in our mind state, even if we die suddenly, to know that how to die, that this is just another transition. It's not, there is no death. We don't die. We're just moving into another realm of love, as long as we allow it and we're aware of it.
Absolutely.
Wow, I like that explanation.
We have someone that joins us. What is your name?
I'm Susan Walter. I'm sorry I didn't join you earlier. I had my internet was down, but it's back up now.
That's okay. We have a few more minutes of the show, so just tell us a little bit about yourself, if you can.
Oh, where do I start? I had near-death experiences. I've had two at the very young ages, at 4 and 6, and where I had to have life-saving surgeries. I'm sorry, my cat's being rather insistent right behind me on my chair, wanting some attention. But from those near-death experiences, where I was introduced to 3 of my own personal angels, after that experience, I was able to just see them all the time, and they've always been with me ever since then. And then later in 1997, they started showing me not just my own angels, but everyone else's as well. And I've been doing angel portraits ever since then, and for people. And then I also do other kinds of spiritual art as well. And I don't think I would have done any of this without those experiences and that introduction to the spirit world, and to realize that there is so much more to our world than what we see with our physical eyes.
Wow.
True. Thank you for that. It's fascinating, Joel, that, there's so many people around the world who have near-death experiences. And again, they're similar, but not exact. But these are not, to listen out there, this is not DMT. This is not a chemical release. And, some people would say, well, I don't believe in heaven, hell, God. I don't believe in a creator. I believe when you're dead, you're dead. Maybe, just maybe, that is their belief, because that was the soul contract they designed, because maybe they already went through this in previous lifetimes, and it's just something that they don't want to hear about or experience again the way we would experience it. Like, I'm not meant to be an astronaut, they're not meant to go through this again. It's fascinating, and it is true. And the book, Ameera, how does this book going to help people?
I think this book is going to help people like me and others, people who are struggling with the fear of death, people who have a lot of limiting beliefs around the idea of what death is, the idea of being judged, the idea of going to heaven or hell based on your good and bad deeds. And I think that a lot of the fear and misunderstandings and misrepresentations of what the death experience is and what lies beyond that will be cleared up, or at least, the very least, give people a different perspective so that they can decide for themselves what they want to believe about this topic, instead of being encased with limiting beliefs and fear that they've picked up through religious understandings or through their upbringings. I believe that everyone should have the choice to decide what they want to believe and what they want to create based on their own experiences and understandings, and not just what they've been told growing up.
Yeah, I
I
have a
like
question
it. I like
that
it.
I want to get to from Lorianne. Do you think it is an easy transition for an unexpected death? Will they know where to go and what's going on, or will
Yes.
they be confused? I'm sorry, Laura, it's hard for me to see. I could put that up there.
I think it depends on the soul.
I was
Okay.
greeted by Jesus and I didn't believe in him. I mean, I grew up, being told he existed, but I didn't believe he existed. So he was the only one waiting for me under the tree. When I got into heaven, I walked through the clouds. And so he told me, okay, well, after he gave me a hug and we joked, then he said, okay, come on, we have a lot of work to do. And I said, I know, you're dealing with me, because I was an atheist. So then he took me to watch my life review. So then I meet all these other people, and then yeah, it just keeps going and going. So yeah, they'll know where to go is the answer to that question, I believe. And they'll be totally at peace. And if they're not, and if they're shocked, because some people, like I channel now as a result of my near-death experience, so I channel messages from heaven. And some people who do go over are not at peace or are shocked. And so they are soothed by their guides when they get there. But then that also gets into the whole ghost thing, which is a whole other thing. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering that.
That's a great question. Anybody else want to take that on?
I was going to say that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I put the question up there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as far as transition is concerned, part of the transition is whether or not there's pain or not. And when you're actually transitioning, you don't feel any pain. So that part of the transition is easy. And yeah, the same thing in regards to what Megan said. The only reason why a soul gets confused is when usually has to do with stubbornness, ego, or inability to expand their mind. And when that happens, sometimes, then you have ghosts. So, those are some of the things that happen.
Yeah.
This has been a
I agree.
fascinating
I believe
show.
most people.
Yeah. I mean,
Nice.
I'm sorry, it goes by so fast. And Susan, if you want to join us on our next show, because we were doing a part 2 with the other authors, I think it's February 26th, right? So
Yes.
if you want to join us on that day to, talk about more about your story, you're welcome to.
Thank
you guys
you.
so much for coming on tonight. We really, really appreciate it. You guys have an amazing story, and
Yes, most definitely. And to listen, this is an experience like no other, what you go through in a near death. Ameera, we're going to wrap up the show. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming on and sharing your experiences. Where can people find the book that comes out on March 21st?
So they can go to neardeathinstitute.com, and it's near-deathinstitute.com/death the book. And if you go on Google, you can just type NDI Death Book, and we should pop up on Google.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming on tonight. Special thank you to Carnation for fully sponsoring the show from day one. Please join us next Monday night on the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate it, and we love the story. So thank you so much. Have an amazing
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Have a
for
great
having us.
night.
Bye, everyone.
thank you.
Bye.